Come on, sweetheart. Show me what you've got. Let's see if those little hands can even hold a rifle steady. The words cut through the observation deck like a blade scraping across the barrel of a loaded weapon. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the railing of Range 4's elevated observation platform, arms folded across a chest heavy with campaign ribbons and a bronze star he mentioned in every conversation, grinning at the woman below him like she was the punchline to a joke only he had the rank to tell. His voice carried. It always carried, the kind of voice engineered for performance, calibrated to make sure every person within 50 meters heard exactly what he wanted them to hear. Below the platform, the outdoor range stretched 1,000 meters into the Nevada desert. July heat shimmered off packed sand and concrete firing positions in visible waves. The air smelled of cordite, gun oil, and the slow bake of metal left too long in 112-degree sun. 43 Marines and range instructors stood at various stations along the line, spotters behind high-powered scopes, coaches with clipboards, a maintenance crew pausing mid-task on a target mechanism to watch the show unfolding on the deck. The crack of rounds downrange punctuated the dry air like a metronome nobody could shut off. An AC unit rattling overhead in the observation deck was losing its war against the desert. Everyone could feel it. Hale's shadow fell across her workspace. She didn't look up. The woman sat behind a spotter's table, reassembling a disassembled M110 semi-automatic sniper system with a kind of mechanical calm that made her hands look automated. Late 20s. Maybe 30. Regulation bun pulled tight under a patrol cap bearing no rank insignia. No unit patch. No name tape. Just a plain set of desert combat utilities that said absolutely nothing about who she was or why she was on a live fire range surrounded by men who outranked her, or thought they did. Her face was still. Not blank. Still. The kind of still that takes years to build and discipline to maintain. Her fingers moved across the bolt carrier group with spacing and wrist angles that didn't match any standard armorer's course. The way she indexed the upper receiver, thumb along the rail, 3 fingers supporting the handguard from underneath at a precise 45-degree cant, was a technique taught at exactly one school in the United States military training infrastructure. She seated the upper receiver into the lower with a single quiet click. 12 seconds. The full strip and reassembly of an M110 in 12 seconds. In the far corner of the observation deck, positioned near the stairwell where the shade pooled deepest, a man in his early 60s lowered his coffee cup. Range Master Sergeant William Decker, 32 years of service, 3 combat tours across 2 decades of American warfare, and a permanent squint from reading wind at 1,000 yards in conditions that would make most shooters pack up and go home, had been watching her from the moment she walked onto the range that morning. He had watched her sign in with credentials that raised 0 flags. He had watched her select a firing lane without hesitation. And now, he had watched her reassemble a precision sniper system in a time that made his pulse change rhythm for the first time in years. His pen stopped mid-stroke on the scoring clipboard. His eyes narrowed. That reassembly speed. He had seen it exactly once before. At a facility in a part of North Carolina that didn't appear on any map he was cleared to discuss. A facility where the shooters didn't have names. They had designators. Decker said nothing. He set his coffee down on the railing. He watched. Hale leaned closer. The scent of aftershave and arrogance filled the cramped observation space between them. Behind him, 3 junior officers exchanged grins, Lieutenant Royce, Lieutenant Kim, and an ensign whose name nobody remembered because he had been on base for less than a week. Hale was the kind of man used to being obeyed. Not because people respected him, but because his voice was loud enough and his rank just high enough to make hesitation feel like insubordination. He stood with his boots planted wide and his chin lifted, arms crossed like he owned not just this range but the entire Western Training Command. "I asked you a question." His voice dropped lower. Theatrical, a performer finding his register. "What's your qualification score?" "Because I just set the new battalion record yesterday. 912 out of 1,000 at 800 meters. He paused to let the number breathe. "That's not a joke, honey, that's history." She clicked the charging handle into place, locked it, set the rifle on the padded bench with the muzzle pointed downrange, exactly as regulation required. 456, she said. Hale blinked. Then he laughed. The kind of laugh that invites everyone else to join in. And they did. Royce first, then Kim, then the ensign, then 2 range techs near the water cooler who hadn't even heard the conversation but joined the laughter because Rank was laughing, and Rank sets the emotional weather on any military installation. The sound rippled outward across the observation deck and drifted down to the firing line below, where heads turned. 456 out of 1,000? Hale wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That's not a score, sweetheart. That's a cry for help. That's the kind of number that gets you reassigned to folding laundry." She set the assembled rifle down with both hands. Her breathing was level. "Controlled, 4 counts in, hold 4, 4 counts out, hold 4. I didn't say out of 1,000, she said. Then she went back to cleaning the optic. Her fingers moved the lens cloth in small, precise circles. She did not look at him. She did not elaborate. Hale's grin didn't waver. But something flickered behind his eyes, just for a heartbeat. Then it was gone. A flash of recalculation, a microsecond where the joke didn't land quite right. He straightened, rolled his shoulders, clapped Lieutenant Royce on the back hard enough to make the younger man step forward. "All right, Miss 456. He raised his voice so the crowd below could hear. "Since you're clearly here on someone else's orders and wasting government resources doing it, how about a little demonstration? You and me. Live fire. 800 meters. Standard scoring. Right now." He spread his arms to the crowd below like a preacher addressing a congregation. "In front of everyone. Unless you'd rather go back to polishing our equipment like a good tech support girl." She looked up for the first time. Her eyes were calm, brown, unreadable, not angry, not amused. The kind of eyes that have seen things that rearrange what a person considers worth reacting to. "What are the stakes?" "Stakes?" He grinned wider. "Bragging rights. Unless you want to make it interesting, your range record," she said. "If I beat it, you sign a written acknowledgement of the score." Official paper. Witnessed. Hale's jaw tightened, just for a second. The tendons in his neck shifted. Then the grin came back, broader, more certain. Because in his world, certainty was a weapon you never put down. Done. The afternoon brought new indignities. Word spread through the base the way gossip always does in military installations, through encrypted group chats, mess hall whispers, and the steady erosion of truth through repetition. By 1400, the story had mutated 3 times. She wasn't just a technician who had mouthed off to a decorated captain. She was a contractor's girlfriend who had wandered onto the range and pretended to know weapons. She was a civilian analyst from some nameless office who thought handling a rifle made her special. She was a joke with a pulse and a clearance badge, and tonight she was going to learn what real marksmanship looked like. She ate alone in the mess hall at 12:30. Institutional chicken that tasted like discipline and powdered gravy. Metal tray, metal chair, the fluorescent lights humming above her at a frequency she could feel in her teeth. She didn't look at her phone. She watched. Not the food. The room. Who sat with whom? Who deferred to whom with a nod or a dropped gaze? Who checked exits before sitting down? Where the real authority flowed beneath the official rank structure, the informal networks of loyalty and debt that actually run a military installation when the paperwork stops mattering. She was doing intelligence work. Everyone else thought she was sulking. A corporal walked past her table, paused, leaned down. "Hey, for what it's worth, good luck out there." He glanced over his shoulder. "Hale's a prick, but he can shoot." She nodded once. "I know." 2 words. Nothing else. The corporal waited for more. She went back to eating. He moved on. By 1500, the range had been reconfigured for the challenge. 800 meters. 10 rounds each. Standard military precision scoring on electronic targets. Hale had ensured an audience, an email to half the battalion, a mention at the afternoon briefing, a casual word dropped to the base public affairs officer. 67 personnel now lined the observation area and the gravel berm behind the firing line. Marines in utilities. Instructors with stopwatches. Admin staff who had mysteriously found reasons to be outdoors. Someone had brought a folding chair and a bag of sunflower seeds. Someone else had brought binoculars they didn't need at this distance. The air tasted of dust and anticipation. Hale arrived in a freshly pressed uniform. He carried his own rifle, a customized M40A6 with a Schmidt & Bender scope he'd purchased out of pocket, and an adjustable cheek riser he had machined to his exact specifications. He set it on the bench, ran his hand along the stock like he was introducing an old friend to a new audience, and began his pre-shot routine with the deliberate showmanship of a man who had rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times. She arrived carrying nothing. "Where's your weapon, sweetheart?" "I'll use a range rifle," she said. The laughter was immediate. Wider this time. Even a few of the instructors who should have known better let out short breaths of disbelief. A range rifle. The beaten, scuffed, zeroed-to-nobody M110s that sat in the armory racks like blunt instruments waiting for someone who didn't care about precision. No one used a range rifle for a head-to-head challenge at 800 meters, not unless they had already accepted they were going to lose, or unless they didn't need the advantage. She selected one from the rack without checking the serial number. Didn't adjust the scope. Didn't fire a sighting round. Didn't check the trigger pull weight. She just settled behind it on the bench, pressed her cheek to the stock, adjusted her body position with a single rolling motion of her hips that seated her skeletal structure into a natural point of aim, and exhaled. Decker's pen stopped again. He was standing at the far end of the observation line now, clipboard at his side. He had watched her seat the rifle into her shoulder. The cant of her elbow, the way her trigger finger rested along the guard, not on it, along it, with the pad positioned at a point that suggested thousands of hours behind a weapon system like this. Tens of thousands. Hours that accumulate only in places where ammunition is unlimited, because the mission requires perfection, and perfection requires repetition until the body forgets it has a choice. The kind of muscle memory that doesn't come from a manual. He wrote one word on his clipboard margin, trained. Then he circled it. Twice, Hale went first. He took his time. Each shot deliberate, a breath cycle between rounds. His adjustments between shots were small and precise, half-minute windage corrections, a quarter-turn elevation tweak after his third round drifted high. His groupings at 800 meters were tight, not extraordinary, but disciplined. Consistent, the work of a man who practiced regularly and took genuine pride in the skill. When he finished, the electronic scoring system compiled the results, and the digital board at the end of the range updated. 918. 6 points above his previous record. He stood up from the bench, raised his fist. and turned to the crowd. They responded. Applause, a few whistles. Someone shouted his name. He absorbed it, rolled his shoulders, smiled the smile of a man who believes the universe is correctly organized, and he is standing at its center. She stepped to the bench. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. She didn't adjust the scope, didn't check the wind flag snapping at the 50-meter markers, didn't look at the mirage indicators. Somewhere behind her, Hale muttered something to Lieutenant Royce. The words "waste of time" carried across the firing line on the dry wind. She fired. The first round split the air like a door slamming shut on an argument. Then, the second. Then, the third. No pause between shots beyond the natural mechanical rhythm of bolt manipulation and recoil management. Her body didn't move. Not visibly. The rifle rose and settled with the precision of a piston. She fired all 10 rounds in under 90 seconds. Most marksmen at this distance take 4 to 5 minutes. Some take longer. Silence. The spotters behind the high-powered scopes at the far end of the line didn't move. One of them, a staff sergeant with 16 years of range instruction behind him, pulled his eye away from the lens, blinked, rubbed the eyepiece with his sleeve, and looked again. His hand went flat on the spotting bench. His mouth opened. "Score," said the range officer. The number appeared on the digital board. 974. Someone dropped a clipboard. The clatter echoed across the firing line like a rifle report in a cathedral. The crowd didn't laugh. They didn't cheer. They went absolutely still. 67 people frozen in place. The wind picked up a curl of dust and carried it across the gravel. Nobody noticed. Hale stared at the board. His face cycled through disbelief, recalculation, and something colder. Something that lived beneath the performance. His right hand went to the railing of the observation platform and gripped it until his knuckles went the color of bone. "Run it again," he said. "Scores are verified, Captain," the range officer replied, checking his tablet. 2 spotters confirmed. Electronic scoring confirmed. Margin of, I said, "Run it again." She was already standing, already disassembling the range rifle with the same 12-second efficiency she had demonstrated that morning, placing each component back in the rack without looking. Her hands moved like they had done this while blindfolded. In the dark, under fire. She didn't look at the board. She didn't look at Hale. She didn't look at anyone. "That's not possible," Hale said. His voice had lost its theater. It was just a voice now. Stripped, not with a range rifle, not without a sighting round, not at that speed. He stepped forward. "Who the hell are you?" She picked up her patrol cap from the bench, settled it on her head. Her movements were unhurried, precise, exactly who my ID says I am. She walked away. Her boots crunched on the gravel with measured, even steps. She didn't look back. The crowd parted. Nobody spoke to her. Nobody tried. Something about this woman. Hale couldn't place it. But it was there. In the way she moved, the way she breathed, the way she treated a 974-point score at 800 meters with a borrowed rifle like it was an inconvenience rather than a miracle. By 1630, Hale had pulled her access credentials. By 1700, he had filed a formal request for a security investigation into her presence on the range, citing unverified personnel status and suspicious technical competence. By 1742, 2 military police officers escorted her to a holding room in the administrative building. The room was 8 feet by 10. Concrete walls painted the color of institutional surrender, gray that had once been white, or white that had given up trying. A metal bench bolted to the floor. A single overhead light with a wire cage around the bulb. A window near the ceiling that showed only sky, flat, white, burning Nevada sky that offered no comfort and no information. The smell of disinfectant failing to cover something older. Something that had seeped into the concrete over decades of confinement and confession and bureaucratic procedure. She sat on the bench. Her wrists rested on her knees. Her back was straight. Her breathing was level. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. This is the near-fail moment. The point where anyone watching from the outside would think she's finished. Credentials confiscated, locked in a holding room. An angry captain with a bruised ego and a battalion record that no longer matters, filing security complaints with every office that will listen. Game over. Except games have rules, and she's about to show them they've been playing the wrong game entirely. Her watch read 1803. A simple black field watch with tritium markers. Nobody had taken it. Nobody takes a watch. That's the thing about the small details. They're invisible until they're the only thing that matters. In 23 minutes, a duty officer at SOC headquarters in Fort Liberty, North Carolina, would notice that her daily encrypted check-in, the one she had transmitted every evening at 1800 for the past 4 months without a single missed transmission, had not arrived. Standard protocol for a missed check-in from a Tier 1 embedded operative dictated a trace within 30 minutes. That trace would activate a chain of communication that moved upward through the command structure faster than any paperwork Captain Marcus Hale had ever filed. In 61 minutes, the secondary failsafe she had hard-coded into her operational plan 97 days ago would trigger an automatic personnel flag across 3 classified databases simultaneously. Her cover identity, the technician, the nobody, the quiet woman with no rank insignia, would dissolve like smoke in a crosswind. And every official action taken against her in the past 6 hours would become evidence. In approximately 2 hours, Captain Marcus Hale was going to learn the difference between a battalion range record and a classified kill count that is measured in units his clearance level does not grant him access to see. Nobody had taken her watch. That was how she had planned this. 3 months ago, at 1847, Decker knocked on the door of the second-floor office where Hale was filing his security complaint. His knock was quiet. 2 taps. The knock of a man who has been in service long enough to know when a situation is about to change temperature and wants to be standing on the right side of the room when it does. Captain. A word. Hale didn't look up from the paperwork. His pen scratched across the form. Not now, Sergeant. I'd be very careful about this one, sir. Something in Decker's voice. A weight that hadn't been there before. A gravity that comes from certainty rather than speculation, made Hale's pen stop moving. He looked up. What did you say? I've been watching her all day. Decker stepped inside the office. Closed the door behind him. His voice dropped to the register he used when what he was about to say mattered more than what anyone wanted to hear. The way she seats a rifle. The reassembly speed. The trigger discipline. The way she indexed that receiver this morning. I've seen that training profile once before in 32 years, Captain once, and it wasn't at any school that shows up on any roster I've ever been cleared to read. She's a technician. Decker, she's a range contractor who got lucky. 974 at 800 meters with an unzeroed range rifle and no sighting round is not luck, sir. Hale's jaw clenched. Decker held his gaze for 3 seconds. The kind of silence that makes people check exits. Is she a technician, Captain? Or is she something you haven't considered? Close the door on your way out, Sergeant. Decker left. He didn't close the door. At 1904, 2 black Chevrolet Suburbans with government plates turned onto the base access road, not standard transport. Command vehicles. They moved through the security checkpoint in under 8 seconds. The gate guards saw credentials held against the driver's side window that made them straighten to full attention, wave the vehicles through, and immediately reach for their radios. At 1911, 3 figures stepped out of the lead vehicle. 2 wore the service dress uniforms of flag officers, stars on their shoulders that caught the last of the Nevada sunlight and threw it back. The third wore a dark suit with a laminated identification badge clipped to his breast pocket. The badge bore no agency name, no seal, just a series of alphanumeric characters and a holographic strip that shifted color when it moved. The kind of appearance that says this is official business at the highest level. Their shoes clicked on the concrete in unison. 4 Marines in the parking lot snapped to attention without being told. A lieutenant crossing the lot stopped mid-stride and pressed himself against a wall. Hale met them in the corridor outside his office. His face was already changing. Something flickered across it, just for a heartbeat, recognition that the world had rearranged itself and he was standing in the wrong place. Captain Hale. The man in the suit didn't extend his hand, didn't smile. My name is immaterial to this conversation. I am here for the woman you are holding in your administrative building. She's under a security review. I've filed the proper. Your review is terminated. Your filings are suspended. This conversation is now classified. The man reached into his jacket and produced a tablet. He turned it toward Hale with the screen already lit. Do you recognize this classification header, Captain? Hale looked at the screen. His face went white. Not gradually. Instantly. The kind of white that starts at the jaw and spreads upward until it reaches the eyes, the forehead, the hairline, until the man wearing the face looks like he's been bled dry from the inside. Classified red. Tier 1, JSOC Special Missions Unit, eyes only. Personnel file. That's above your clearance. Yes. The man closed the tablet. It is above the clearance of every person on this installation, with the possible exception of your range master sergeant, who I suspect already knows more than he's told you. Take me to her. Now, the walk from the second-floor office to the holding room took 45 seconds. In that time, Hale's hands opened and closed 3 times at his sides. His jaw was locked so tight the muscles at his temples were visible. The 2 flag officers walked behind him in formation silence. Their campaign ribbons caught the fluorescent corridor light. Between them, they carried more combined operational authority than Hale would accumulate in 3 full careers. One of them, a 2-star general with a Silver Star ribbon and a face carved from decades of decisions that cost lives, hadn't spoken since he arrived. He didn't need to. She was sitting exactly where they'd left her. Metal bench. Hands on knees. Breathing steady. When the door opened, she didn't stand. She didn't react. She looked at the man in the suit the way a colleague looks at another colleague who has arrived on schedule. The man stepped aside. The 2-star general moved forward. He looked at her. His gaze dropped to her left arm. She didn't move it. She didn't need to. Her sleeve had ridden up, maybe deliberately, maybe not, and there on the inside of her left forearm, just below the wrist, a tattoo. Small, precise, black ink, faded just enough to say it had been there for years. A trident wrapped around a Roman numeral sequence, the insignia of a unit whose existence was classified above the clearance ceiling of every person standing in that corridor. Every person except the 2-star general. And Decker. The general went rigid. His right hand, the hand that had signed deployment orders and casualty notifications and operational authorizations that shaped the course of engagements across 3 continents, trembled, not much. A vibration. Then it drifted upward. Slowly, deliberately, the way a man moves when he understands that he has made a categorical error. Not about a person, about the nature of reality inside his own chain of command. He saluted. The room detonated, not with noise, with silence. The kind of silence that has weight and texture and sound. The kind that presses against eardrums and makes the hum of the overhead fluorescent tube sound deafening. Someone in the corridor dropped a two-way radio. The plastic clatter against the tile floor echoed like a gunshot in a church. A boot scuffed concrete, a breath caught and held. 67 people on a base in the Nevada desert would hear about this moment within the hour. None of them would believe it at first. The second flag officer saluted. Crisp, immediate, his face unreadable and professional. The man in the suit inclined his head, not a salute. An acknowledgement from a world that operates on different rules and different clearances and different definitions of authority. Decker stood at the end of the corridor. He had followed them down. Nobody had told him to. Nobody had needed to. He watched through the open door with eyes that were wet. Not from sadness. Not from surprise. From recognition. 32 years he had known. From the moment she seated that rifle into her shoulder with a technique taught at a facility that doesn't exist on any map. From the 12-second reassembly. From the way she breathed under pressure like someone who had been shot at enough times to find the rhythm calming. He had known. He raised his hand. Slowly, the steadiest salute he had performed in a decade. A salute no regulation required. A salute chosen from 32 years of knowledge and professional respect and the simple understanding that some people carry weight that rank cannot describe. Captain Hale. The general spoke without turning around. His voice filled the corridor like concrete setting. For the record, the woman you detained, publicly mocked, challenged to a shooting contest to humiliate, and placed under security investigation is Commander Alara Voss, J-Shock Tier 1 Special Missions Unit. Her operational call sign is classified above your clearance level. Her confirmed long-range engagements across 4 theaters of operation are classified above your clearance level. Her assignment to this installation for the past 4 months has been classified above your clearance level. Do you understand what I am telling you? Hale didn't answer. He couldn't. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing. Not theatrical silence. Just the silence of a man standing in the wreckage of everything he thought he understood about the building he worked in. Her qualification score, her real one, captain. Not the 456 she gave you this morning because she has a sense of humor you were not equipped to recognize, is classified. But I can tell you that it is measured in a system that does not use a 1,000-point scale. Because at her operational distances, a 1,000-point scale would be meaningless. The general paused. Let the sentence land. Every person in this corridor, including myself, operates under her mission authority for the duration of her assignment. That assignment is not over, and you have now compromised it. Hale's face had stopped cycling. It had settled into something worse than anger or shame. Fear. Not fear of her. Fear of what he had done and who had witnessed him do it, and the understanding, arriving slowly, completely, that his entire career had been a performance in a room where the real operators were watching from chairs he couldn't see. You will receive formal notification of an investigation into your conduct within 72 hours. Your security credentials are suspended effective immediately. You are relieved of range authority and command responsibilities pending review. The general turned to the man in the suit. Get him out of my sight. She stood, picked up her patrol cap from the bench, tucked it under her arm, looked at Hale for exactly 2 seconds. Not with anger, not with satisfaction. With the quiet, level gaze of someone who has already moved on to the next problem. "You wanted me to shoot your score in half, Captain." Her voice was level. "I went easy on you." She walked past him. Through the corridor. Through the building. Into the Nevada evening. Hit that share button so everyone sees what real justice looks like when it finally arrives. The desert sky painted itself in shades of copper and violet as the sun dropped behind the spring mountains to the west. She stood outside the administrative building, alone, her patrol cap held loosely in one hand. The air was finally cooling. Somewhere on the distant range, the last rounds of the day cracked and echoed and faded into the desert and were gone. Her watch read 2014. They mocked her score. They forgot she doesn't keep score. She keeps a kill list. Inside the building, the investigation had already begun. Not the investigation into her. The investigation she had been building for 4 months. Hale's financial records, his after-hours communications with contacts who didn't match any approved liaison roster. Supply manifests that didn't add up. Ammunition counts that vanished between inventory checks. A pattern of small corruptions that, assembled together, pointed toward something much larger. A pipeline of diverted military equipment flowing to buyers who did not serve any flag she had sworn to protect. The shooting challenge had been a complication, an acceleration of a timeline she had planned to run 3 more weeks. Not the mission. The mission was the 16 names on a list she carried in her memory. Not on paper. Not on any device. In her memory. Operators from a joint task force that had been ambushed outside Aleppo 7 years ago. An ambush that had been classified as a tactical failure. A tragedy. Friendly fire compounded by bad intelligence. She had never believed that. She called it what it was. A betrayal. Someone inside the network had sold the operational route. Someone had traded the lives of 12 Americans for money that moved through channels she had spent 4 years tracing. 12 of the 16 names had been resolved. Justice delivered quietly, in rooms without windows, through legal mechanisms that produced no headlines and required no applause. 4 names remained. She pulled a small photograph from her breast pocket. Creased along 2 lines. Faded at the edges. A surveillance image captured from a rooftop camera in Aleppo 7 years ago. In the background, partially obscured by shadow and the grain of a low-resolution lens, a figure. Half-turned, face invisible, but present. Standing on a rooftop that had a clear line of sight to the convoy route. Someone had been there that night. Someone had watched. Someone was still out there. Justice isn't loud. It's patient. She tucked the photograph back into her breast pocket, settled her patrol cap on her head, squared her shoulders against the cooling desert air, and walked toward the black vehicle waiting at the far end of the parking lot, its engine already running, its headlights cutting 2 clean beams through the gathering dusk. Tomorrow brings new ghosts to hunt. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVP Stories for more.